Hello, second grade. This is going to be our first video for language arts, and I'm going to put all of the notes and the read alouds here all in one video so that you can go back to it as often as you need to. And I want to go over some of the things that we're going to be using. That way you can access them from home and you can get help from mom and dad so that you can find all of your materials. Now, in our shared folder, we're going to have this folder that's called second, third, and fourth grade documents for distance learning. And we're going to have different weeks. So each week you can open up the folder to see the different documents that we're going to have in there. So the first one you see in here is second grade ELA, Unit 1, Week 1. So those are going to be our notes for today. Our notes are going to have a few things. We're going to have our vocabulary for the week. We're going to have our spelling notes and an example of what spelling notes should look like when you do your 3 times each, as well as our grammar notes for the week. Now you're going to be doing your work throughout the week, so you're going to want to come back to this video when you're doing different parts of your assignment so that you can get extra help and a reminder of the information that we covered. Now, one of the things I want to show you that I already sent to mom and dad is the link to get to your books online. So your books, so that you can listen to your read alouds, you can access that, or mom and dad can open that up for you. They already have the username and password. Now, when you log in, you're going to see a few things. So when you first log in and you want to go to language arts, you're going to go all the way down to the bottom until you see where it says Wonders. So for second grade Wonders, we're going to open the second grade Wonders book by pressing the launch button. This is what you're going to see in front of you when you first sign in. Now, the easiest way to do this is to go to Resources, and I want you to go to your literature anthology. This is your big book. So if you don't have your big book with you, you can open it online. Now, in your big book, you can flip the pages. Oops, let's go back one. And we're going to be in Unit 1, Week 1. So up here you can see it says Week 1 in small letters, and you can click on that story and it'll take you to your story. Now, you're also going to be reading out of your small book, which is your reading and writing workshop. So if you click on that one as well, you can do the same exact thing. So we're going to flip our pages until we get to our table of contents, and we're also going to go to our Unit 1, Week 1. Now, as you're working through your work for this week, you're going to be listening to your stories and you're going to be completing pages in your homework packet, which is going to be out of your practice book, and in your grammar packet. Now, both of these can be found in the shared folder. So if you open up your shared folder, we go back to this second, third, fourth grade documents for distance learning. So if you misplaced your workbook or you need another copy of it, you can go to your all ELA workbooks folder. You can open up second grade, and then you can open your practice book. So your practice book looks like this, and this is basically going to be your homework book. This is what you're going to be doing most of your work out of throughout the week. So we're going to go all the way down until we find our first page. Okay, now your first page of your homework packet is going to be about your vocabulary words. So we're going to go over your vocabulary words and their meanings before you get started on this page. Now I want to point out to you at the bottom, it'll tell you which book you're in. So to make sure you're in the correct book, you're in the practice book for second grade, and we're on Unit 1, Week 1. So when I assign you work, I'll tell you what pages to do. You're going to be looking at the pages down here at the bottom. So for this week, we're going to be working on a few of these pages, not all of them. And you'll be able to see those in our weekly schedule and in Google Classroom. As you complete your pages that are assigned to you, you're going to keep editing that document. So I'm going to send you the whole packet for the first week. but I'm going to make it due on Friday. So each week I'm going to hop in there and I'm going to check and see if you did the page for that day. So you don't have to turn in the assignment. I'm going to set it for Monday, but you don't have to press submit until Friday. So you can open it, add in the answers for the page that you have to do, and then it'll save automatically by itself. You don't have to do anything else. Once you get to the last page and you finish the last page that you are assigned, then you're going to press submit at the end so that it can send it to me. Now, the last page of your homework packet that you're going to be doing is this page, the writing page. And we're going to be working with a draft model. So I want to explain to you how the draft model works before you get to it so that you don't make mistakes. Now, this page, they're going to give you a very, very short story. They're going to give you just a few sentences, and they're going to ask you questions on how you can give more information and make it more interesting. So for this one, the draft model says, Ronnie and Kevin went on a picnic. When the friends got there, they set out all the food on a blanket. Then it started to rain. The two friends quickly put everything back into the basket. They went home. So this is just a very basic story. It doesn't tell you a lot of things. So they're going to ask you questions down here where you can fill in the answer underneath, or you can just write the answer on a piece of paper. Because you're going to be using the answers, you're going to be adding the answers to this draft model when you do the rewrite. So the first question says, where did the two friends go on their picnic? So these are things where you can make up the answer. There's no right or wrong answer. So maybe I want to say they went on a picnic at the beach. The second question said, what did they pack for their picnic? Maybe I want to say they packed turkey and cheese sandwiches. Maybe I want to say they packed spaghetti and meatballs. So I can put as many different things as I want in there. And the third question says, how did the friends get home? So by the end of the story, it just tells us that they went home, but it doesn't tell us how. Maybe they rode their bikes home. Maybe they walked or ran home. Maybe they took a bus home. Maybe they were on a skateboard. So you can come up with a bunch of different ideas so that when you go back and now you're going to revise or you're going to rewrite and make it better, you're going to rewrite your draft model by adding the details that describe what happened at the picnic. So we can rewrite it, and we're going to add in the answers that we came up with here so we can make a more interesting story. So we can say, Ronnie and Kevin went on a picnic at the beach, and it was a very sunny day. When the friends got there, they set out all the food on the blanket. Ronnie unpacked the spaghetti and meatballs, and Kevin unpacked the plates and spoons and forks. Then it started to rain, and the two friends quickly put everything back into the basket. They got on their bikes and they rode home as quickly as they could. So you can see how I took the original draft model. I took the answers to my questions underneath that were helping me generate or make up new ideas to make the story more interesting. And then I rewrite my story down here on the lines with all the fun and interesting details that I added to it. So when you're doing your writing, please make sure you're using your best handwriting, or if you're going to be typing it in, make sure you're paying attention to your punctuation, that you're putting a period at the end of your sentences and you're starting all your sentences with an uppercase letter. Have mom and dad check your work before you turn it in. So this is going to be where you're going to find your practice book pages. And at the bottom, it says practice. So if you're not sure if you're in the right book, you can always take a look at the bottom. Now, the other book that we're going to work out of is going to be your grammar book. Your grammar book will do the same thing like your other book. Scroll down until we get to the first page, and it'll say grammar on top and what you're covering in grammar. So we're going to be talking about different kinds of sentences at the bottom. This is practice for your grammar, and it's Unit 1, Week 1. So for grammar this week, we're going to be talking about sentences and different kinds of sentences. There are extra practice pages that you can use in here in case you feel like you don't have a good understanding of the idea or the thing that we're learning. You can go back and do the extra pages. We also have our spelling book. Our spelling book is where we get our spelling words each week. So your spelling words for this week are listed right here. We're going to be focusing on short A and short I. And if you want to make sure that you're in the right place, you're going to see phonics and spelling at the bottom, your grade level, and Unit 1, Week 1. So these are going to be your spelling words for the week. There's also additional practice spelling pages if you feel like you're having a hard time with the words, or you want another way to practice them so that you're ready for your spelling test at the end of the week. You can go through the practice pages. I'm only going to require these if I see that someone is having a really hard time with their spelling so that they can get the extra practice that they need. Okay, so now that we've gone over all of those things, we are going to hop into your stories for the week. So remember, we went from your main page in Wonders, we clicked on Resources, and we clicked on your Reading and Writing Workshop was the first one, and your Literature Anthology was the other one. So we're going to start in your big book, the Literature Anthology book. And here you can listen to the story if you're having a hard time reading it on your own. So I'm going to play the story for you.
Genre, fantasy. Help, A Story of Friendship by Holly Keller.
So when you want to play the different pages, you're going to click on the little speaker icon. And when you finish the page, you're going to click on the next page button over here.
One morning, Hedgehog found Mouse covering himself with leaves. "What in the world are you doing?" asked Hedgehog. "I'm hiding," said Mouse, "from Snake." "From our friend Snake?" asked Hedgehog. "Yes," Mouse whispered. "Fox told Skunk, and Skunk told me that snakes are very dangerous to mice." "That's silly gossip," said Hedgehog. "You know Snake would never hurt you. Come on, we can walk together and you will be perfectly safe." Mouse hesitated. "I insist," said Hedgehog. So Mouse went along. Hedgehog talked about little things, but Mouse wasn't paying attention. He was still worrying about Snake. He looked around nervously. He looked everywhere but at his feet. "Oh, help!" Hedgehog peered down. "You should be afraid of yourself, Mouse, not of Snake." "It's not funny," Mouse yelled. "I've hurt my foot and I can't get out." "Are you sure?" Hedgehog shouted. "Yes," Mouse yelled. "Stay calm," said Hedgehog. "I'll get help." Just then, Squirrel walked by. "Mouse has gotten it into his head to be afraid of Snake," said Hedgehog. He was so nervous that he didn't watch where he was going. He fell into a hole and hurt his foot, and now he can't get out. Can you help? But Squirrel couldn't help. "It will be too dark," she said, "and there might be spiders." Rabbit came along, and Hedgehog told him about Mouse and Snake. "You know how to go down holes," said Hedgehog. Rabbit looked into the hole. "Hello, Mouse," he yelled. "It's too deep," Rabbit said to Hedgehog, "and the walls are too straight. I wouldn't be able to hop out." "Why don't you go, Hedgehog?" asked Squirrel. "Because Mouse would have to get on my back and my prickles would hurt him," Hedgehog said. Mouse started to cry.
So we're going to stop and think for a moment. We're going to visualize or imagine how might Mouse feel when he's at the bottom of this hole. So when you're visualizing something, you're stopping and you're thinking and you're trying to picture in your head what the character is doing and how they're feeling.
Wishy, wishy, wishy. Hedgehog heard the grass move. It was Snake. "What's going on?" said Snake. "Shh," Hedgehog whispered. "Mouse fell into a deep, dark hole. He hurt his foot and he can't get out." Is it a secret? Snake whispered back. Not exactly, whispered Hedgehog. It's just that we don't know how to get him out. Squirrel is afraid to go down by herself. Rabbit wouldn't be able to hop out, and I'm too prickly. Then I'll go down, Snake said. No problem. Oh, no, said Hedgehog. That's not a good idea at all. Not at all, said Squirrel. Not at all, said Rabbit. You see, Snake, Hedgehog said, Fox told Skunk, and Skunk told Mouse that snakes are dangerous to mice. Mouse was trying to hide from you when he fell into the hole. But I have always been Mouse's friend, said Snake. Of course you have, said Hedgehog. So I'm going to rescue Mouse anyway, said Snake. How will you do it without scaring Mouse? Asked Hedgehog. Someone get a stick, said Snake. Squirrel did it. Now tie my tail around it, said Snake. Rabbit did it. Now make sure the knot is tight. Hedgehog did it. Now watch. When Mouse saw the stick, he grabbed it. Snake began to climb the tree, and slowly Mouse came up. Mouse saw Snake and gasped. Then he saw the stick still tied to Snake's tail. Snake saved you, said Hedgehog. He did, said Squirrel. He rescued you, said Rabbit. Because I would never hurt you, Snake said. Mouse turned a deep shade of pink. I am very sorry, he said. Snake, Squirrel, Hedgehog, and Rabbit helped Mouse hobble home. They bandaged Mouse's foot, and he lay down to rest. Several mornings later, Hedgehog was taking his walk, and along came Mouse. He was holding a bouquet of flowers. Where are you going? Asked Hedgehog. I'm going to say thank you to Snake, said Mouse, and to give him some flowers that I picked. And Snake was very pleased to have them.
Okay, so now we've reached the end of our first story, and we're going to go ahead and hop into our story small book, or in our reading and writing workshop book. So before we do that, first, when you open up your reading and writing workshop book to Unit 1, Week 1, you're going to come across the vocabulary page, and it's going to give you some example sentences using your vocabulary words. So first, let's go ahead and take a look at the words that we have this week. We have the word actions, afraid, depend, nervously, peered, perfectly, rescue, and secret. And we're going to go over the meanings of those words in just a moment. But first, I want to go into your next story. So this story is a fantasy story, which means it's make-believe. And we're going to talk about different things that make up a fantasy story as soon as we're done reading.
Genre: fantasy. Little Flap learns to fly. Little Flap was happy living in his nest. His friends, Fluff and Tuff, lived in the nest next to him. Every morning they sang songs together. Their parents brought them worms to eat. One day, Fluff asked, "Can we get our own worms?" Tuff said, "We can if we learn to fly." Fluff said, "Yes, let's learn to fly." Little Flap peered over the edge of his nest. It was very high up. When he looked down, the ground seemed very far away. He felt scared. He was too afraid to tell his friends about his fear, so he kept his feelings a secret. Fluff said, "Let's practice flapping our wings. It will make them strong. Watch." Tuff and Little Flap watched Fluff. Then they copied her actions. Soon it was time to fly. Little Flap could no longer keep his feelings a secret. He asked, "Will I fall? I don't want to get hurt." Tuff said, "You can depend on Fluff and me. We're your friends." Fluff said, "I have an idea. We will go first and show you how. Then you can try. If you fall, Tuff and I will rescue you." Tuff said, "Yes, we can save you." Tuff and Fluff jumped out of the nest. They flew. Little Flap looked down nervously. He still felt uneasy, but he felt braver with his friends. "Okay," he said, "let's try." The three birds stood together on the branch. They counted. 1, 2, 3. Then they flapped their wings fast and jumped. Little Flap lifted into the air. "You're flying just right," said Fluff. "You're flying perfectly," said Tuff. All three little birds landed in a patch of soft green grass. Little Flap said, "Now I know I can always depend on you, Fluff and Tuff. You are my friends." Then he found a big juicy worm and shared it with his friends. Now Little Flap likes flying.
Okay, so we've reached the end of that story. Now, we've read 2 stories so far, and we're going to talk about the different concepts that we're going to learn with our reading and writing, and those are going to be on the next page. So first, let's go back and go over our vocabulary words. So your vocabulary is going to look like this. The first line will explain the meaning of the word. Under it, we'll be using the word in a sentence, and under that, for part B, we'll be using the word in a question. So you're going to see the meaning of the word first, an example sentence, and an example question for each one of your words. So your first word was the word nervously. When I act nervously, I act in a fearful or restless way. So when you're nervous, you're afraid or you're worried about something. So when you're acting nervously, you're doing something in a way where you're worried about it. So we know that Little Flap nervously jumped out of the nest and started flapping. And we know that in our first story, Mouse was very nervous because he was worried that snakes were dangerous to mice. Your second word is the word peered. When you peer at something, you're looking at it very closely, right? You looked really hard or closely at something. So we can say Sam peered into the classroom before entering. And we can say, when have you peered at something? So when have you looked very closely or carefully at something? When you're afraid, you're scared of something. So if something scares you, you are afraid of that thing. Little Mouse was afraid when he fell into the hole because he wasn't sure how he was going to get out. And Little Flap was afraid that he might fall when he was trying to fly. So we can say we are afraid of monster movies, or we can say, how do people act when they feel afraid? Your fourth word is the word rescue. When you rescue something, you're saving it from danger. We can say the firefighters rescued the cat that was stuck in the tree. Or you can ask a question and say, why might people need others to rescue them? Now we know that Snake rescued Mouse out of the hole, right? Because Mouse was in danger and he was stuck inside the hole, so his friend Snake came and helped him out. Your next word is the word perfectly. When something is done perfectly, it's done with no mistakes or errors. So when you're doing something exactly right, you're doing it perfectly. Your first example sentence says, the girl completed her homework perfectly. That means she did all of it correct. She didn't get any mistakes in there. She didn't write any wrong answers. Or you can ask, what have you done perfectly lately? So maybe you know how to make your bed perfectly, or you know how to put away your toys perfectly. So they're in the exact right spot. Word number 6 is the word secret. A secret is something that is private or it's not known by many people. So if you tell your friend a secret, you're sharing something with them that not everybody knows, and probably something that you may not want everybody to know. So you can say, I promise not to tell my friend's secret, or you can ask, why might it be hard to keep a secret? Your seventh word is the word depend. When you depend on someone, you need or count on them. So I can depend on my sister to drive me home if I need a ride home. You can depend on your mom and dad to help you with your homework when you have questions. A sentence you could use is, they depend on the bus driver to take them to school. Or you can ask, who do you depend on? And your last word is the word actions. Actions are things that someone or something does. An action is a thing that you do. So running or jumping or walking or reading or writing or smiling or laughing, all of these are actions. So an example sentence is, the team's actions helped win the ball game. Maybe their actions were that they were all working together. They were all following directions. Or you can ask, what actions help you do well in school? Now your spelling words, you're always going to have 15 spelling words, second graders. So 10 of those words, 10 of those words are going to be new words. 3 of them are going to be review words, and 2 of them are going to be challenge words. So your homework for spelling is that you're going to write your words 3 times each in a notebook. You're going to skip lines. You're going to leave a 2-finger space between your words, and you're going to use your very best handwriting. If your work comes back messy, I will send it back to you and ask you to redo it. So your words this week are going to focus on short letter A and short letter I vowel sounds. Your words this week are the word has, wag, bad, 6, will, sat, had, fix, him, if, can, hit, why, for, and help. Now, when you go to do your 3 times each, this is the way I would like your paper set up. I want your name and date in the top right-hand corner. So please put your full name, first and last name. You're going to write spelling words. And I put 1.1 instead of writing unit 1, week 1, it becomes very long. So the first one is the unit, the point, and then the second one is the week. So spelling words 1.1. You can see over here how I'm skipping lines in between each one. And the first 2 are written in a way that is correct. So over here, you can see that I left a nice big space in between my words, and that's a 2-finger space for me. So you would write your first word, and then you'd put 2 fingers on the paper after it, and then that'll help you figure out where you write your next word. So you write them nicely and neatly using your best handwriting, making your letters nice and clear. The third one shows you something that's not the way you're supposed to do it. So if your letters are all squished together, your handwriting is not good, if you're not leaving your spaces in between, this is not correct. So this I would send back to you and have you redo it correctly. Now, let's go ahead and talk about our grammar. So for grammar, we're going to be working on sentences. Now, a sentence we know is a group of words that gives us a complete thought. It tells you a whole idea. And every sentence, no matter what kind it is, always begins with a capital letter. We're going to talk about 2 different kinds of sentences today. We're going to talk about statements, and we're going to talk about questions. Now, a statement is a sentence that tells something. It's a telling sentence. So if I'm telling you, I like apple pie, or my sister's backpack is green, these are telling sentences. I'm telling you something that's going on. A statement ends with a period. So we're going to take a look at these 2, and we're going to decide which one is a statement. Now we can see that this one, they both say the same thing. They say, Jake goes to the park with me. What is missing in the first one that we find in the second one? So we saw that the first one here starts with a lowercase letter. So we already know that that's incorrect. We know that every sentence, no matter what kind it is, always starts with a capital letter. And we can look at the end here and there's no period. So there's no end punctuation. And we know that a statement ends with a period. So over here, we know that our second one is written correctly, and our first one is not correct. The second type of sentence we're going to talk about is a question. Now, a question is a sentence that asks something. It's an asking sentence, and it always ends with a question mark. So some example questions are, what is your name? How are you? Do you like to read stories? Now, all of these we see start with a capital letter, and they all end with a question mark. So that's what we're going to be covering in grammar this week. Now we're going to go back to your reading and writing workshop, and we're going to talk about different comprehension skills and strategies, and we're going to talk about your vocabulary strategy. We're also going to go over what makes a fantasy story a fantasy. So we're going to talk about the genre or the type of story called fantasy.
Visualize. When you visualize, you form pictures in your mind about the characters, setting, and events in the story. Find text evidence. After reading page 23 of Little Flap Learns to Fly, I know that Little Flap is thinking about flying. On page 24, what words does the author use to help readers visualize the nest? I read that the nest was very high up and the ground seemed far away. From this, I can visualize the nest.
We're going to talk about key details, which are important parts of the story.
Key details. You can learn important information in a story by looking for key details in the illustrations. Find text evidence. As I read page 24 of Little Flap Learns to Fly, I can look at the illustrations to find key details about the characters and events. Graphic organizer. Detail. Little Flap looks nervous about flying.
So when we're talking about text evidence, what we're doing is we're looking for things that give us ideas about our answers. We're trying to find the answers from the words or the pictures in the story. So the text is the story. If we're looking for evidence, you're looking for clues. So you're looking for clues in the book to answer the questions or to help you visualize or imagine what's going on in your story.
Genre. Literature. Fantasy. Little Flap Learns to Fly is a fantasy story. A fantasy is a made-up story, has imaginary characters that could not be real. Find text evidence. I can use what I read to tell that Little Flap Learns to Fly is a fantasy story. The story has made-up characters. Use illustrations. I see the birds have clothing on. I know birds in real life do not wear clothing. This must be fantasy.
So a fantasy story is a made-up story that has parts that can't be real. So when you have people that fly, or if you have animals that talk, all of these things that you can't find in real life give you clues to tell you that it's a fantasy story.
Inflectional endings. To understand the meaning of a word you do not know, you can separate the root word from the ending, such as ed or s.
So when we're working with inflectional endings, you have the regular word, the word all by itself in the smallest form, and a lot of times we'll have an ed or an s on the end of it. So instead of the word look, we have looked or looks. So you can take those off to help you figure out the meaning of the word. And then you can take what you know about the meaning of that ending. So if something ends with ed, we know what happened in the past. It already happened before. And if something ends with s, we know that it's happening right now. So all of these clues help us to figure out the meanings of the words that we're reading.
Find text evidence. I'm not sure what the word looked means. I know the root word look means to see. The ending ed means this action happened in the past. The word looked means saw something in the past. When he looked down, the ground seemed very far away.
So we can take a look at the sentence, and we know that we're reading the story after it happened. So Little Flap is not looking down right now. We know that he looked down before when he was looking at the ground, and he saw that the ground seemed very far away. Okay, so this is going to wrap up our lesson for language arts for this week. Remember, when you go into your Wonders, when you sign in, you're going to go to resources, and then you're going to use these two for your stories. Reading and Writing Workshop, which is the book that we were just in, and your literature anthology. Again, if you misplace your practice book, it's right here. All of your workbooks are also found in here in our 2nd and 3rd grade documents for distance learning. You open the language arts workbooks folder, and then you go to 2nd grade and you'll find all the information there. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, 2nd grade. Let me know if you need help with anything. I look forward to seeing you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.